Max, good morning or good afternoon. Great to see you. Firstly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Chris. Good morning to you. My name is Max Behesht, of course, and I'm the Dean currently of César Ritz Colleges, Switzerland, as well as Culinary Arts Academy in beautiful Lucerne in the heart of Switzerland, which we have right in the back of me virtually. But frankly, what my role is what I really believe in, which is that life's not about the number of breaths we take, but the moments that take our breath away. And that is something that truly connects to my own purpose and why the music in me. And I try to live that every single day in a way that I'd like to have those unforgettable moments. And I like to make sure that people around me have those as well and are able to create those moments for themselves and for me. And so that's what I do. Going back a few years, I was able to find that. And every single day I wake up and I ask the world, how may I serve in the way to make the world more engaged, more connected to authentic happiness and fulfillment across the planet through hospitality, of course. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. And who's inspired you, Max? Who's been the leaders in you, whether political, whether historic, whether real life, that inspired you?
You know, obviously, we all have special teachers in our lives, but when we talk specifically about leaders, there are so many. And it's hard to put on specifically one because I really also believe that for some reason these days we seem to look for the perfect leader and the role model that has zero flaws and has never done anything wrong. And the minute we find out that maybe historically, even years ago or centuries ago, when they lived, they did something that we don't approve of today, we simply can ignore their message or whatever it was they did. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we all have our flaws. Nobody is perfect, but there is moments of inspiration to be had in order for us to be able to learn from and move on. And so there are people like Gandhi, and being in the service of others and truly going in that passive kind of focus on this is how we want to influence and that persistence and resilience. We've got Nelson Mandela in South Africa, which is simply, the very definition of resilience throughout years and decades. I have to say, these days I connect a lot to what Martin Luther King was doing, and when he had that dream and he was talking about that, and I'm very much about public speaking, so that also connects to me in the core that you want people to be recognized for who they are and their true personalities and characteristics, and not but the way they look or sound, etc., etc. So those are some of them, and then of course going even further back, people like Marcus Aurelius. The big philosophers out there, Rumi, the Persian ones, of course, I have some Persian heritage as well. So that connects to me, certainly. Even the Persian emperor, Darius, who really opened the doors of the borders and welcomed the Jewish population who was actually fleeing, and they were kind of in desperate situation and gave them shelter. These kind of things are the moments that you find, these moments of kindness and great leadership that connect. And today's world, I mean, there are CEOs out there that do certain special things in terms of branding, say Steve Jobs, that truly inspire me in the way they create branding, etc. Other leaders who are able to create authentic leadership and showcase that through their leadership. And I think within the world of hospitality, we have the likes of Bill Marriott, but of course, somebody who inspired me recently, very much indeed, when I saw his video when the pandemic was on, was Arnold Sorenson, who passed away just recently. And I watched his video. I wasn't very familiar with him before that, but when I watched his video that he recorded going through pancreatic cancer, and just in the beginning of the pandemic, and he came up and he looked like, was skinny and really fragile, and still stood up there in front of millions and all his employees, sending a message of hope and wanting to be resistant and resilient and go forward. Absolutely inspiring. So I think inspiration and teachings and learnings are there in front of us, whether there are good experiences or bad ones, but we need to be mindful about it and to learn from that.
That's very wise. Two things. Firstly, learning. What's been your greatest learning in your career?
It's been really, there are a lot of things to be said as well, but something that I've really experienced across the past 2 decades is that I've also relocated more than 25 times within cities, within countries, between countries, even continents sometimes. And that has taught me, a lot about cultures, etc. But one thing that unites us all as human beings and is the one of the key elements of influence and persuasion as well, and that's reciprocity. What goes around comes around, and we're conditioned to give back the same way that we're treated. And that is something that has had such an impact on me since I was on my first job as a waiter when I was 17, in my back in the island I'm from in Sweden. And I just jumped on board and got a job as a waiter. And I realized that, the way you treat your customers immediately comes back in the shape of gratitude, even the tips that you're getting. And it just goes in a nice circle. And that's what I've been developing. The more I look at how I've been able to, throughout my career in life, really influence, it's been connected so much to reciprocity. Waking up in the morning, asking yourself, how may I serve? And then the world asking you, how may I serve? And of course, not being naive about saying yes to everything, but focused and wanting to do the best you can. So reciprocity, I would say.
I've noticed during your answers, kindness, compassion, and service are core to you, Max.
That is very true. That is very true. I think culturally it's been in the family and goes because I'm connected to some cultures that, not only I'm Swedish, but I'm also, Persian, Russian, and it's got some core elements of hospitality in those cultures, the family culture. And personally, I just always been in an environment of service and kind of reciprocity and hospitality. And that creates this feeling that as I'm getting older and as I'm learning more about leadership, and I know you need to be very much resilient and firm and assertive at many different aspects and many different occasions, but at heart, you want to create that value. And that is what drives me. And that is what I'm trying to teach the students always to focus on creating. Even the company I launched a few years ago before I joined Swiss Education Group was all about changing your mindset. It's called the servicizer mindset. It's about learning the value of what value you can create so that the world comes back to you. And it's so far served me pretty well. And I hope that it continues as I try to inspire others to go in the same direction.
Oh, that's very good. Success and failure hit us all. How's it impacted on your life?
I really believe that, when you fall, it's because you need to learn to get up, and then that's what makes you stronger. So the idea that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I really believe in. But when we connected to leadership, Chris, I had an opportunity, a very unique opportunity. In fact, when I was in business school very early on, and this is back, I think, just at the turn of the millennium, around 2000, 2001, my first proper leadership position that I was hired for as a student to go on a seasonal basis to be the country manager and the course town manager of STS language schools in Malta. And I'd never been to Malta. They desperately needed somebody who could lead the course town, and they got to recommend it. They recommended some of the other mutual kind of colleagues that I had and friends I had. They recommended me to the hiring manager. And so we simply had an interview, and he said, I need somebody who lead it. You have managed some great projects at the business school through the student body. Would you be willing to go to Malta, open up the office for the season, connect to all our agents in the household, the host families and the hotels that we have in our operations, and then run the course town over the season. And as adventurous as I am in terms of getting new experiences, I immediately said, of course, no problem. Until I found myself the beginning of June in Malta, where they drive just like in the UK on the wrong side of the road for me. And I had to kind of set myself up in a country I'd never been before and be the source to go to for all our staff, where I had staff of 80 people from across Europe, all different cultures. And we had 3,500 students coming over for 2 or 6 or 8 weeks stay in host families and across hotels. And it was at a level that I never expected. And I had the idea of, well, I know a lot about leadership. I thought back then, I was like, well, I'm going to inspire them. I'm going to hold these great speeches and have great meetings and follow through and be authentic, and it's going to work out. And what I really quickly learned is that when you're sitting in a meeting with colleagues from France, from Nordics, from Malta, from Italy, and East Europe and Czech Republic and Poland, etc., you can't have the same leadership style and expect everybody to be on board and go forward. So I would have meetings where some people, the French teams would come after, afterwards to me and say, Mr. Max, do you know what you said? I said, I'm sorry, we've been talking for over an hour. You never raised your hand or you never asked me, you could have told me what it was. Oh, we didn't understand anything. I was like, oh, my dear. Or I would ask the Nordic teams to go out there and deliver, and they wouldn't want any interference. And the Maltese colleagues, they absolutely wanted to, because they wanted to really perform well. They needed to be handheld in terms of, okay, this is what I want you to do now. Then you do this, then this, and have a complete step up process in terms of basically, what to do with task list. This is your to-do list. Now get it done, and please focus on that. So I learned very quickly that you cannot put everybody in one basket and say, this is my leadership style and this is how I lead. No, no, no. You need to go back to many different leadership styles and adapt to cultures and the people you're dealing with. Otherwise, you will not have a success. So I learned that really the hard way, but it took me a few weeks until I realized this is not working out. So I had to change and adopt really the hard way with a real world experience, which I'm extremely grateful for, because that really taught me a great lesson. And connecting to that, before that, I used to be a tour guide and a bus kind of guide in my island back in Sweden, where I used to grow up, where I did grow up. And I learned quickly that I was selling excursions to the bus passengers, the tourists that were there. And I was very good at sales. So the first excursion I was selling, I'd never experienced it. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I've been told the specifics and the features. And I got on the bus, I sold it to everybody. And everybody bought it. And I was so excited. Now I'm making commission. The boss is happy. The morning after, when we pick up everybody to go on the next excursion, everybody was angry, the looks. And I was like, what's going on here? You guys okay? And like, you had no idea what you sold to us. This is terrible. It was, we just went to the countryside. It was nothing authentic. There was just somebody playing the guitar and it was some desserts from the local dishes. This is not at all what we wanted. And that really hit me in the head and said, you will never, ever again sell something or oversell something to the point that you don't know what you're talking about. Never, ever oversell. And that I believe to absolutely even today. So when we were talking about all our schools and whatever it is we do, I never will say, oh, this is the best in the world, or this is, even though we're all our schools in the top 10 in the world now with the QS world ranking, university ranking, I would never say that, because I think perfect doesn't exist. It's the ambition to get forward that really counts. So I think these are some of the things. And the greatest success, to be honest with you, I would say the first day that I delivered a few courses with our César Ritz students before I even joined César Ritz colleges, and I was simply through my company offering some lectures. And at the end of one of the courses, I gathered the feedback from the students. And it was very much connected to mindset and personal development. And some students were writing there, this really changed my life.
Oh, fantastic.
And I was never expecting that. And that was one of these moments where I've been working on my concept for over 2 years. And I was hoping, where everybody else was saying, who do you think you are? Why would we believe you as a thought leader in anything? Service, customer experience, leadership. And then these students were writing these feedback and then the comments, and really authentically. And that was one of the biggest moments in my life emotionally, until the 31st of December last year, when my son was born. And now he's the little prince that I'm extremely proud of.
Many congratulations on that. It's a great journey, an absolutely great journey. Has there been something in your life, an event in your life that's influenced you as a leader or changed you as a leader?
Oh, absolutely. So these ideas of serving and being a servant leader, of course, is one of them. And then never to put people, in the same category and just put them in one boat. And I think as a whole, it's just been this journey of connecting to cultures and picking up the best from each culture and being mindful about people as individuals and never as a group, as a whole. And that's how I really believe that it's possible to connect to people, and through hospitality bring them together, because you pay attention to the details, you pay attention to the name of the individuals you're dealing with, you try to truly build that wonderful experience. And then that's, frankly, we've talked about this, that's my definition of hospitality that drives me, and has shown to me over and over that this is what makes sense to me as a hospitality, art of hospitality, is the welcome of being out there and being visible. Nowadays it's through digital and social media and whatever it is in the way of marketing, but to be able to welcome your guests, your clients, your customers to your business, to your home, then to be able to analyze and in detail develop touch points and interactions that creates an incredible experience that people never stop talking about. They want to share with everybody else about it, and they want to come back for more of. And then once you do that, to build long-lasting relationships. And being authentic, I think, is one of the key things also that connects with it. And as a whole, excellence combined with empathy. These things are, as I get older, as I gather more experience, it's more and more proven to me that you need to be genuinely you and have your excellence together with hand in hand with that humility. The biggest investors and the biggest leaders I've met in my life have been the most humble ones who know themselves and know not to be arrogant, because the more you know, the more you know how little you know. And fundamentally, as a whole, it's all about that journey of 1,000 miles there, starting with that first step and connecting to the quote of Emerson of not going where the path may lead, but to go where there is no path and leaving a beautiful trail behind you. And so I think these days, with what the future has got in store for us, we need to truly connect to who we are and what we do, and to be able to create something unique through which we can serve the world with.
Oh, that's very good. Final question. What would you say to your 18-year-old self? What advice would you give yourself?
Well, considering that was many, many, many years ago. I was mentioning to you before, I wrote myself a letter before when I was about 15 or 14. And that was a very wise one, which I found a few years ago. And I sadly didn't listen to that. What I really would tell myself, because I've done a lot of mistakes, I've had failures, and the journey is nothing I would change, because otherwise I wouldn't be in this position, in this situation today, where I'm able to actually inspire and touch students' lives, which is so inspiring to me. But I would definitely go back and maybe be able to save myself a decade or two of not knowing exactly what my purpose, that music in me is. Because I turned 40 the year I actually discovered that purpose, if you say, and I was able to find and be in my element truly. And nowadays, the first thing I talk to the students about is, why are you here? What is your focus? Or do you know what that music is within you? So that's what I would try to cut off. Basically, I would take the element story of Ken Robinson or the Ikigai and just go back to my 18-year-old self and say, listen, you sit down here and you figure out what is it you're good at. Write it down. I don't care what it is. It's your sports, it's your speaking, it's your presentation abilities, whatever it is. Write it down. What is it you love doing every single day? You get up in the morning and you just can't get enough of. Write those things down, and then learn a way of connecting these so that you find a product, a service, something of value, a performance art, whatever it is, that you can get up in the morning and you can show the world that this is what you do. This is the value that the world needs, and there's a need out there for something always when you have something of value to offer. I wish I would have done this back then, because it would certainly give me, 18 years old, it would have given me 22 more years to work on perfecting, because perfect doesn't exist, but every day we try to be a little bit better. Those 22 years I would have taken. So I would just put myself down and say, listen, you figure this out now. And I would tell one word to myself, which I didn't know and nobody told me, which would be hospitality, because I was very obsessed about creating these experiences and everything, even as a young student, or when I was even in high school, as a 17-year-old with my first job as a waiter. But of course, I studied natural sciences, and it had to be engineering and everything in the beginning before I switched to business, because that was my father's dream as well. Son, doctor or engineer. But nobody ever told me that there is something like hospitality to look at. The word didn't exist. And in Sweden, if you brought that up, I was like, well, you are a loser? You got to take natural sciences. What are you talking about? Go work in restaurants or lead hotels? What are you talking about? And that's something I wish I would have mentioned to myself, so I would have known where that passion actually was.
Very interesting. Very good. Max, thanks for your time today. It's been fantastic talking to you as always.
Absolute pleasure. As always, Chris.